Hello, over Abnormal Investigations. I have another encounter for you, and let's get into this one. The dirt driveway is close to a half a mile long, stretching far into the woods, and ends in an open field where the cabin I reside in stands. I rented the cabin for a couple of weeks so I could just have some time away. My phone lost signal about 10 minutes before arriving here, but that was part of the idea. I wanted to be alone. I didn't even bring a gun. I brought some hiking boots, and that's about it. I arrived a week ago and settled in quite nice. I spent the week walking through the woods, sitting by McCollum Lake as I drew in my notebook, and I wrote music. I never felt alone, but then again, I'm in the woods. There could be rodents, birds, or any number of woodland creatures just around the corner. I never would have suspected my intuition to be so correct. It first made itself known while I sat on the back porch one night. I noticed a flock of birds vacate a pine tree that abruptly shook far into the woods. I watched closely. The sun only just setting, I assumed a tree had fallen, perhaps hitting another tree nearby it. I finished my beer, stood up, turned on the lantern, and reached for another beer. I stared in the direction of the noise. I felt a sudden silence in my surroundings, as if everything other creatures of the night was staring in the direction of the fallen tree. Moments passed, and the crickets began to start chirping again. Even the coyotes began to yip, resuming their hunt. I thought nothing of it and finished my drink. I turned off the light and went to bed. Some hours later, I awoke to the sound of footsteps, not inside my cabin, but outside. I was reminded of the original Dinosaur Park movie, the cup of water shaking as the approaching footsteps of a prehistoric beast grew louder. I in bed and stared at the one window in the bedroom. The noise grew so loud I could hear things falling in the living room. I griped at the walls, and then I gripped the covers and never removed my gaze from the closed blinds of my window. There was a pause, and the rumbling of steps began to subside. I could tell whatever it was had already stepped out into the open field in which my cabin stood and made its way back into the woods. I jumped out of bed, and I ran to the living room, hoping and hopping over fallen knickknacks and picture frames. Gripping the handle, I swung the front door open and stepped outside. I was overcome with the smell of rot. The body of a raccoon lay about 10 feet from me. I saw a trail of rustled grass and blood spots from the other side of the woods where the noise had first come. My breath appeared in the cold night air as I was overcome with panic. I stepped back inside and closed the door, but continued to look in the direction of the footsteps, the direction that they had disappeared. I couldn't see anything other than trees and moonlight. I slowly creeped through the cabin as if I could hear something, or maybe it could hear me, and I made my way to my phone that I had placed on the charger. I checked the signal. I already knew I didn't have any, but it was worth a try. I searched the cabin for hunting gear of any kind until early morning. I sat in the living room holding my truck keys. I have to run for it, I mumbled to myself. It knows I'm in here, right? What else would it drop the raccoon outside the cabin for? I thought maybe it was returning with a fresh kill but misplaced it. Also, what is it? We don't even get moose this far south of the Upper Peninsula. I walked to the liquor cabinet, grabbed the first bottle and poured a shot. Somehow city life didn't seem so bad. The sun rose and the day went by. I began to grow uneasy. Come on, just run for the truck, open the door, start the engine, and floor it. I repeated to myself as I stood outside the cabin on the small porch leading to the grass. I clutched the truck keys 4 times now, leaned on my body weight in the direction of my truck as if I was about to throw a leg up and to begin to run. My shoulders rose to my neck as I heard the sudden nostril flare off to my left. There it was, standing, as still as a statue, and it was looking right at me. This being was massive, easily 9 feet high, and 5 feet from shoulder to shoulder. It could wrestle a moose to the ground. It stood on 2 legs and was covered in sticks, blood, and fur. Its jaw hung low and slowly dripped slobber. Its massive frame moved up and down with every breath it took. The air leaving its body would ever so slightly move the branches of the trees right beside it. The head looked like a deer mixed with a wolf. It had antlers, but were broken off on the side. Its eyes were hollow, voids of darkness. It was holding a coyote in one hand. The coyote was clawing and trying to flee, but it was already torn up and missing some legs. I seen enough. I stepped back toward the front door, opened it, and rushed inside. I closed the door and began to hear the footsteps approaching, faster this time. With this speed, I could have easily gotten me before I could have reached my truck. I shook my head and focused. I lunged for a knife from the kitchen, but was too late. It had reached the cabin and slammed down on the coyote onto the ground. I could hear it hit the dirt. I held the knife and dove under the kitchen table. The footsteps already were leaving. I sat there shaking. I realized the power of this thing. It could easily have broken down the door and mauled me before I even had turned around with the small knife. I began to believe I would never leave this cabin alive. Hours have passed since then, and the night is upon me. I decided to text everyone, and I know I tried calling every emergency possible. My phone isn't even using the roaming bars. My laptop has a full battery, but that obviously isn't any good without the internet. I made myself eat some lunch meat and drink some water. I begin shaking when I walk around the cabin. Every time I step on the board it creaks. I'm terrified to hear those footsteps again. The speed of the creature is very remarkable, and to my horror, I see that it can be very quiet too. As I spotted the route to my truck for the 100th time, I noticed the remains of a black bear sitting outside my door. I never once heard the thundering steps approach the cabin. It's just toying with me. I'll save what I have written, and I'm going to run for my truck, and I'm going to leave. As I ran to my truck and left, there was no noise, no incident. I drove away peacefully, and I can tell you, I will never return back to that cabin. I hope you enjoyed that one, guys. It was a good one. Remember, keep your head on a swivel, and don't be something's dinner. Thank you for your support, and it means a lot to us.